Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Move complete, move successful. I mean, I've just got a bed behind me in my office, but that works. You know, when Prague hours are coming around, I can just go take a nap right there. I don't have to go very far. It's perfect. But yeah, this is, for the moment, my new office space. At some point, it may move things around, but quite frankly, I'm not very particular for caring what's behind me. I've always just kind of done it with the stuff behind me because why not, right? That's what streamers do. I'm otherwise not too particular. But yeah, everything went smooth. Ivy is enjoying her new living space, or trying to. She does have a lot of cats now to compete with. Some of them like her, some of them aren't really sure about her yet, and some of them can't emotionally process a new cat coming in. But yeah, it's been a busy week. I've been, dealing with the health stuff still, but that's been doing a lot better. I withheld uploading nearly as much as I'd planned to. I had several Final Fantasy XI parts, some Final Fantasy XIV Let's Play parts. I wanted to do a video predicting the mechanics for Fork Tower and Occult Crescent because we do have some precedent for that. But, I mean, honestly, there are so many video ideas over the past several weeks that I have not gotten to work on while dealing with all of that. And I probably won't get to work on them until I get a little more situated here. I mean, Occult Crescent is on Tuesday, and I will be putting big hours into that. And then probably, yeah, sometime in June, I'll be like kind of, oh, Ivy, you're eating? Will be kind of more normal-ish, I suppose. Just, after I've had some time to get situated and take care of everything, But for this video, speaking of not having everything taken care of, I don't have my editing software downloaded. So I'm just going to one-take the whole thing and not pull the questions up. It's just the consequence of this. Maybe I can get it downloaded later today, but I think I should record this with the intention that I won't get all of my editing stuff set up today. Just because I have plans. My cousin lives in Charleston, and I didn't see them last time I was here. So I'm going out to brunch with them this morning, and then I have stream in the evening, and I'm doing this first thing in the morning. I haven't even really had the time to enjoy my coffee yet, and let me take a small sip. Okay, now I'm ready to get the day started. This is, by the way, since my diagnosis, all the coffee I drink in a day, which has been, my body's had some interesting responses to that as well. But yeah, let's go through the Q&A. Before I do that, reminder, I am going to be doing some sponsored pack openings for Final Fantasy X Magic the Gathering when that comes out. I do have a sponsor in that of a card shop, a local card shop in Kentucky that does shipping online. So you can always check them for packs. They're probably going to be restocking one more time before everything, before the Final Fantasy X Magic the Gathering stuff actually kicks off. And when I'm opening the packs on whichever day, I'll have an update for that. Because I know when they release, but I don't know if that's the day I'll have the packs or if I'll have them beforehand. I'm also going to be giving away Collector's Commanders decks, which is the Commander decks with Collector stuff inside instead. So full search foil, the Collector's boosters, all that stuff. So I will be giving some of those away when I do my pack openings on Twitch, specifically on Twitch because it's a one platform giveaway style thing. But I have a discount code for them, so that's going to be in the description of the videos for some time. Also, don't forget that Steel Series, we have our usual stuff. Thank you to the sponsors over on Patreon. And if you have a question, ask it in the comment section below. There's been very few questions and a lot of comments in recent weeks. So I don't know how long this one's going to take because I saw how many comments there were and I don't know how many of those are questions. But without further ado, let me get into them. This one just 21 hours ago. Good thing I didn't decide to do this yesterday. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Haps. Congrats on the successful move. Thank you. Last week's Q&A, I think you mentioned that you don't drive, which as a fellow non-driver was a pleasant surprise if I heard you correctly. Would you describe your pre-move neighborhood as a walkable area, or was it more of a challenge living there car-free? As your new neighborhood compare, are you planning on remaining car-free? Yeah, car-free is a two-part thing for me. Number one, I actually get insanely intense cramps when I'm driving. Because I did get my license. But it was really bad. Like the amount of cramps I would get in the intensity meant that I had to go really slow and really only take back roads. So I really just qualified for my license and then barely drove after that, which is funny because I had a friend who actually taught me to drive stick. He was one of those super stick, purists where, he had like a $3,000+ like Gran Turismo cockpit set that he made me do it in first before he took me out in his Toyota Corolla, But what ended up really making me just not drive was actually in New Jersey when I was a dependent under my father. So he was the one with the car insurance in the house. Even though I wasn't driving, I became a dependent with a license and his insurance went up like $1,000 that year. So he asked me if I could hand my license back to the state if I wasn't planning on driving. Only if I wasn't. And I really wasn't, because I grew up in the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, that whole thing. So, yeah, I just gave it back, and I've never gone back to get it. I've just never gone to get it back again. I'd say I've deliberately lived in mostly walkable areas, but with the introduction of Lyft and Uber and all that, like, I'll basically walk any place that's for immediate, like, groceries, gym, restaurant. That's what I was doing where I lived before. And if I really wanted to go someplace, further away or inconvenient, then I would use Lyft. And I'd say that was okay, but I'd say where I lived just before now, that was kind of a challenge still, especially because I lived kind of far away from like airports and stuff. When I lived in LA and San Diego, it was a lot easier. Nicer to walk around in San Diego, and LA, everything was even more walkable. And B, if I wanted to live someplace, I wasn't going through the Bay Area, which, is its own struggle. My new neighborhood is pretty good. I'd say the number one thing I know is that I can walk to all the most important things, and that all the remaining things are not that far away. So I'd say it's comparable, but I will probably lift more where I'm living now than I did before. But it also costs less, because lifts in San Francisco and the Bay Area, yeah, a lot more expensive than they are in South Carolina, let me tell you. But I'd say it's still a challenge. Like if I didn't have such intense cramps, I would probably get a car and learn how to drive again. Just let's be honest, I probably need to learn it again. Cars drive themselves now. What is that? Just buy a Waymo for myself or something. Save up and just buy myself. I know that's not how Waymo works. It's got like a satellite programmed like in San Francisco, but like, you know what I mean. The cars practically drive themselves nowadays. All right, yeah, tons of comments like it was last week. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Hopefully Healthier. Hey, Haps, hi, hope you're feeling better now. I'm glad the problem doesn't seem to be one of the worst outcomes for it. Well, I had a few more tests done, and they actually want to do a follow-up test on something. They want to test my kidneys to make sure that they're functioning okay. Another good reason why I probably cut back on the coffee and just have a little bit now. Having some hospital scares myself lately, never a good time. No, it's not. Writing this before any pre-release news for the exploration zones. Yeah, we usually just get the patch site update, which is really it, because there's nothing else to talk about. They already did a whole live letter on it. Say the hype is getting to me. Some of the best 14 memories come from Eureka and Bozia after all. My question is, what would be the best approach to the reward structure to make it right this time? Back when I was leveling and going through Bozia, it was a pleasant surprise to me that some of the gear in X5 item level stages surely be a nice addition to catch up or an alternative. The Bozia gear was always pretty drastically behind everything else. And also, it's worth remembering, Eureka is going to be, Occult Crescent is going to be item level synced like Eureka is. Item level 700. So any gear in there, unless it has it boosts to knowledge level or any sort of job specific boost, is not really going to matter all that much. So in terms of reward structure, the relics themselves are usually enough of a structure to keep anything going. But we know we have the Happy Bunnies. We know we have the Magic Pots. We know we have Fork Tower. I think, honestly, Fork Tower needs to have loot that's sellable. I think that there's a little bit of a concern about the sellability of items in general in there. Similar to the Moon, where basically all of the items that we like craft and actually interact with are all used strictly for progression and for the completion of the leave quests. There's some concern that that same thing is basically going to happen here, and that there won't be, because there's no indication of like needing regents for like phantom actions other than a few specific things, that it's a little bit of an unknown. We know that, like, for example, you'll want elixirs for the magic pots. We know that you can buy regents that take up like the Occult Crescent specific inventory, because it's going to have its own separate one, like the Moon, I believe. Things like a chemist regent that they said one of the chemist regents is like 500k, and it's like super OP. But so if you're using it, you're like dumping a ton of gil, but you'll look really cool while doing it. So I'm very curious to see how many people end up using or bringing that. Wondering if it's a primeval brew. So in terms of reward structure, we have armor sets, we have weapons, we have a lot of things to collect. And then it's a matter of what we get from Fork Tower and anything else in the zone. So I'm curious to see if they make it so that it's an area that I'll spend a lot of time in, or if maybe I'll just AFK and do my Happy Bunnies once my relics are done. I'm also very curious to see the patch-by-patch updates to it, because while we know there's no new Phantom jobs in 7.3, there's probably a new relic step in 7.3. And if there's a new relic step, it's probably just back in the Occult Crescent instead of doing it. I mean, it's probably a mix, because we know you can do it in Occult Crescent or outside of Occult Crescent. the progression system for it. But like, there's got to be a step inside as well. So I'm very curious to see how that actually ends up balancing out. Hashtag Mondays with Senor Happy. Yo, Happy. Hello. Hopefully you're feeling better. Yeah, my headaches keep coming and going, but it's not really that bad. It's never nice to know so many things compound on top of each other, but all you can do is troop on. Pretty much all I can do. So this question has to do with FOMO in the rating scene. I've been playing since 6.4, and the first tier was light heavyweight, and I cleared the tier during 7.05 because I was still playing catch-up and, quite frankly, still figuring out which role I wanted to play. Pretty confident in my own rating abilities, as 14 is not the first game I've done rating in, so I started catching on mechanics quickly and was ready to clear most fights in a decent number of hours or pulls. To launch the second tier, I wanted to challenge myself and try to clear it in at least a month. Needless to say, that hasn't happened, as I'm halfway through M8S Phase 2 as of writing this. I find myself a little dour reconsidering a role swap into melee, as I find that usually is a make or break since tank can only pump out so much damage. Honestly, you can't fix every problem in the PF. I actually do think melee DPS is a really good place to be. So here's the thing. If you're going support role in the PF, you can save pulls that are otherwise unsavable, and you have a lot of agency over making sure people see past progression points. But that doesn't mean they can even do the progression points you just saved them from in the first place. Whereas if you're a melee DPS or you're one of the top performing DPS at all, what ends up happening is, even if your tank dies or your healer dies or another DPS dies, if you live and the party as a whole doesn't wipe, your effect over the reaching the DPS check in the PF is significantly higher. So you're not entirely wrong, but I don't think the reason that you wouldn't clear is because you didn't go on a job or a role with enough agency. Generally speaking, it's a mix of how well you're actually playing on the role that you did select and rolling the dice on who you actually get in a party finder. Like there's only so much you can do to be successful in the PF. And there are some people who prove that their own skill clearly affects how fast they go through a tier. I'm always somewhat, I can't help but notice that players who are of like they've been playing longer, they are way more comfortable, I'd say generally a higher skill caliber, they tend to get through PF really quick, and they're still going through all of the same like hoops that everyone else is, even if they like come into the tier late. Decent example was, you know, like we cleared in a week, and then someone in our group literally just went into PF and just cleared their other characters in PF. Like just joining random PFs, not like doing anything, going through all 4 fights all the same. No problem at all. And then there are people who struggle for months, and it's like, it's hard for me without watching every single run and every single pull and every single person who talks about this to know how much of it is really just the other people, which is probably the most common thing, versus you being one of those other people. And it's something that, you know, when you're critical, it's easy to think about, and you are being critical of yourself. But I don't think we're always the best gauge of how good or bad we are. So some of us are really intuitive about seeing where, oh, you know, I made that mistake there, I could have done that better. But a lot of people aren't. So again, this is one of those like, I'm playing in a new role will, you know, increase your understanding of the game, may give you a bit more agency. But I would say that in terms of me being the carry, the only place I ever worry about that is Unreal. Like, if Unreal has no DPS check for a tier, I'll go support because I just want to make sure that everyone else doesn't die or I can save people or something. If it's something like Suzaku where the DPS check is actually really tight, then I'll go DPS because I want to be on a job that has some agency in getting past the enrage. So I do, again, there is something to what you're saying, but how much of you not clearing is because of that is, I'm thinking it's unlikely. I think it's a mix of you still getting comfortable more so than you think you need to, and the dice roll of the other people, which no matter how skilled you are, is always going to be a factor. And then we had the next question, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Happy. Hi. Hope you're recovering well. Same for moving out. And congratulations on the Aloha plush going gold. Yes. Hopefully I'll have more information about that soon. It's going to take a couple months before that actually gets underway, but I'm excited. This is Occult Crescent week. It sure is. I hope the content nails what it's intended to be. Cosmic Exploration was great, but still needs some quality of life, and I'm sure they'll hit it for 7.3. For what it is, I had fun doing fates and socializing. I had even had people gift me high cordials when I asked for them in chat, something I haven't done in my 5 years of playing this game. Requesting an item I didn't have on me. Nice. I hope Occult Crescent has the same aspect, even if I'm doing it solo. Okay, so keep in mind, Occult Crescent solo is going to be a significantly more painful experience if you are planning to grind it. What I mean by that is, and this, I guess this depends on what your definition of solo is. If you are literally not planning on joining parties or forming parties, Occult Crescent is like the intention of Eureka, where you're going to need to grind random enemies that have a difference in level of you, same level or higher, ideally. So you really want to probably group up with a full group of 8 and fight mobs that are 3 to 5 levels higher than the party's average after sinking down. So you sink down to the lowest person, find mobs that are, 4 or 5 levels higher, and then kill them for a couple levels and go find another group of monsters. Doing it solo means if you were to do it truly solo, you'd either A, be relying on challenge logs and doing those weekly, or B, you would be fighting mobs that are equal to your level most likely until you get more phantom job abilities that maybe give you the ability to kind of reach up a little bit more. And that can be tough. I don't know how that's actually going to be on people. Do you think the social aspect is still something that can be achieved? Yeah, as long as a bunch of people are in the same area trying to achieve the same thing, they'll always socialize. Sometimes it's just degenerate shout chat, but sometimes that's exactly what we need, is a modern Barons chat without the racism. So that's it. Doesn't give players incentive to do so. I feel like it's strange to me that players feel like they need an incentive to socialize to break the barrier of socializing. Whereas being in the same place with a common goal is all you really need to socialize. I mean, effectively, Occult Crescent, Cosmic Exploration, those are effectively like in-game conventions in terms of like-mindedness and probably the ideal place to actually socialize without being told, hey, you have to socialize. So I think it's a matter of people wanting to be forced. Like, you generally hear that from like people who played Final Fantasy XI, or maybe old school WoW, or maybe like Maple Story or Guild Wars 1, or like, it's the boomers who say it. Whereas you can also just choose to be like, hey, I'm in the same place as other people. I'm going to socialize with them. And I know it's intimidating. A lot of people are afraid. I know I'm not the greatest at it, but I accept that there's a difference between feeling like I don't know. I guess I'm indifferent. I feel like we have all the tools to socialize now, and we're not being forced to. We shouldn't need to be forced to, I suppose, is where I feel on that one. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Haps. Hi. I would have cast Benediction on you for your blood pressure, but I used it on Gunbreaker before he super bow-lighted. Man. At least he goes up to 50% health now. 51. Dumb question of the week. If you were an Arcadian fighter and could choose a feral soul, what would you pick? I have to go with a frog. I have to go with, I mean, the thing is, we've got Dancing Green, but like, I always have my frog mask on. So Toad, I want to see a red Chocobo feral soul in the last one, but I'm not going to pick that one for me. I'd be a Toad. I'd be hopping all over. Hoppy Happy, Mr. Hoppy would be good, jumping from lily pad to lily pad, or I'll raise the water of the arena, and then the lily pads will act like the what's it called in E9, the falling platforms in Chaotic in E9S, where you stand on them too long and they'll sink, and if 2 people stand on them, then they sink as well. There you go. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Howdy, Haps. Hi. Oh, and I would jump to the lily pad to instantly knock it down as well. That would be the other thing. Howdy, Haps. 2 quick questions. When can we expect a live letter for 7.3? June 20th would be the earliest expected date that I would label out. And we will find out if we're getting a second ultimate or not that day. We just won't find out what it is most likely, if there even is one that day. I've heard you talk about cross data center party finder. Have the devs made mention of this if they are working on it? Yeah, they mentioned it several times that they want to get the cross data center party finder working, specifically within the regions. Those like a North American party finder and a European party finder. But yeah, they've made mention of it several times. So we're hopeful that they'll get through it maybe before the expansion, but let's be honest, probably expansion time. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy Mondays. Oh, hey, that's a lot of Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hi. First off, I hope the road to health will be a short one with less headache, both literal and figurative. Yeah, the headaches, they come and go. It depends on, like, how I conduct myself throughout the day. Honestly, when I'm up and active, it's not so bad. It's when I'm really sedentary that it seems to, like, kick in. So I think I need to just get my blood flowing more often. But then I also don't want to injure myself doing so, because I don't really fully understand the scope of the damage that was done. But I do know that I probably should not go back to intense workouts just yet. Now for the question. You mentioned in your No Tank M Success review vid that you would like to try something with a non-standard party comp sometime. Would you be willing to Do so once you feel better. I've been trying to do non-standard party stuff for Savage. I think it needs to make a lot more sense. And the answer is yes. But a big problem for me is the time consumption. My schedule, I've got to, well, I mean, right now it's you know, a bit up in the air because I'm still getting adjusted to, you know, the time zone change and stuff, but I generally keep a pretty tight schedule. So making plans outside of that schedule is tough. And a lot of people, like even though I make a living doing what I do, you would technically classify my lifestyle as a neat lifestyle, not an education, what's it called? What is it? Education, something and training. Oh, not in employment, education, or training. Yeah, technically you would consider it a neat lifestyle. So like I just get to do what I want, like hours wise. But that means that I usually take care of everything in the morning, and I keep my evenings open to either, you know, working on other YouTube stuff or spending time with Sophie or doing something else. So that's always been a big like factor, is that if I'm ever going to make plans like that, they need to be made so far in advance, and it needs to like not conflict with other parts of my life. And so that's another reason why I generally haven't spent a whole lot of time doing the non-standard stuff. The answer is yes. I would once I'm feeling better, which I don't even know when that'll be at this point. But it also needs to be it needs to work timing wise as well. And if it takes too long, I usually need to dip out just because I usually have other plans. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hello, hi. So 2 quick questions, hopefully quick answers. Why does Messui on Ninja just give you gauge and not give you a free use of Bava/Zesho Meppo? I don't know. It's like asking why, I think it was Talana gave 50 gauge, because it used to be, was it Talana that gave you Dance of the Dawn in the beta, and then they changed it because it was silly? I think it was. I think that's what it was, because now it's I think Devilment gives you Dance of the Dawn now, but in the Media Tour, Talana gave you 50 gauge and Dance of the Dawn. Maybe even just early Dawn Trail, it was like that. And it was very silly because it just gives you a chance to overcap, basically. And it's one of those things where it's like, it would make sense to do it, but that's how we got to the homogenization aspect of the game at the same time. So it's like, it's a classic fight back and forth of, should we homogenize it, make them all work exactly the same? Should we keep some of them separate so it interacts with the job in some different way so it stands out? It's one of those. Second, would dropping the 2-minute cooldowns to 1 minute make the game better or worse? I mean, it wouldn't change anything. You would just have, well, let me rephrase this. Effectively, what you would have is you would be in your burst window about 40% of the time. It would probably make deaths less painful, but they would also probably make the buttons less impactful. So they would probably like nerf them all, for example, to balance them around the way the game is scaling at this point, because they probably already have an idea of what they want to do for that. So in theory, if the only other concern, and honestly it's not a concern for me, is how busy you would be every minute. Because you're the busiest playing the game while you're in your 2-minute window. Like, it's a set rotation, but that's when you're really busy. And a lot of players can't even do their 2-minute buffs when they're 2 minutes apart. So it's one of those things where it creates a dynamic where there's a lot more room for players to play worse. And the players who are already playing well don't really play better. They just get something that they just get to press more buttons often. So that's what led us down the 2-minute path. I think I'm a bigger fan of kind of what we were doing in Shadowbringers, where you have a big buff window right at the start, and then you have most jobs have like a smaller buff window at 1, and then a pretty big buff window at 2, and then maybe like a weird in between one at 3, and then another one at 4, and then another weird in between one at 5, and then another big one at 6. Like, I think the idea of having more burst windows is good, but the amount of involvement in your rotation being equal to that of your 2-minute every 1 minute probably counterbalances the other way, where a lot of players that are not super like into the game or like into like their level of play, it ends up just affecting them a lot, which then branches out and affects things like PF a whole lot as well. So yeah, there's a bit of a question of whether or not that would make it, but I'd rather we just have like different buff windows. Like, go back to the Shadowbringers way. I think we overlooked that was actually pretty good design. And we thought that it was disjointed design, but it was actually good design. We should probably go back to doing that. Because I know the feedback back then was, oh, why is this 3 minutes? They should just make it 2 minutes. Like, I probably said that about Bard for what's it called? Battle Voice, because Battle Voice was 3 minutes. So, I wish I hadn't. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Personally, I'm very excited about Final Fantasy MTG, especially the 10 Commander deck. Anything in the set you're excited about? I just really like seeing other people excited. And I like being a part of that excitement. I'm a pretty simple person to please overall. I don't have really any major wants or needs. I enjoy my work. I enjoy my time with Sophie. I enjoy my time with the cats. Enjoy a nice meal, but like, in terms of, and I enjoy experiences. So like the actual item of the Magic the Gathering card, while I can like look at it and be like, oh, that's cool, I like that reference. Yeah, it doesn't like invoke an emotion or like a need or anything like that in me. But when I'm surrounded by people who are excited about it and I know I'm interested in it, that kind of pushes it over that extra limit. So, watching all of the cards get revealed on the live stream and, talking about the cards on stream when, we were going over the commander decks and everything as they got revealed and some of the new cards. That's more exciting to me than the card itself is that shared experience of being like, oh, that's really cool. And then getting some people who play the game seriously to talk about like decks and constructions that could work, and the crazy combos like the Noctis combo or the VV combo for standard. Like, that's to me more exciting. Like, that's why I don't really play card games much anymore. I'll just watch like SEMO, Raren, CGB. I'll watch the people who do put in a lot of that time because their excitement about it gets me excited. And that's kind of what I like to channel in my own 14 content as well. In that whether I'm criticizing or praising or just talking about, I want to give that same, like, oh, this person's really into this thing and like I really like singing it. It kind of gives the energy that you kind of feel better being in that place. You're not looking even for like a positive affirmation. You're just looking to enjoy something you enjoy with other people you enjoy it with. And that's kind of how I feel about the card. So no, there's not really a specific card or anything that I want. I just want to have that shared experience at the end of the day. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations. Hello. Sorry about the high blood pressure. Unless you did it to me, don't need to apologize. He's like, I'm writing a YouTube comment section. I think I'm going to be the one who does it. Now on to the question. I've played Machinist since 3.0. Haven't heard all the changes. Now I'm simply trying to understand what it is Yoshi P hates about the job. He's not the one who does the job. He doesn't do the job design. He hires other people to do it. Edgar without the perpetual boner. Find our AoE is odd, our Queen is substandard, and the Full Metal. The thing is, I feel like there's a whole bunch of pieces on Machinist that are individually really cool. They just don't come together correctly. And a lot of that has to do with the disjointedness of the single target AoE. I mean, even down to the single target hypercharge being better on like, I think it's 6 targets now it takes before the auto crossbow is better. And honestly, even when auto crossbow is better, I'll still just do the other one because it feels better to play. Yeah, I don't know who is in charge of designing Machinist, but we gotta have a talk. There's a lot they could do to fix it. I've made some videos about it actually, just talking about them joining those two parts together and giving it a little bit of a damage bump, and that probably pulling the trick. But I also wanted to get some latency mitigation built into the job. I think as much as I actually love the hypercharge, like the, pop a shot, GCD, OGCD, GCD, OGCD. Like, I really like the way that feels. It has been such a huge latency issue for so many people over the years, and it's been a major barrier for entry that I would really like to see them do away with that particular aspect, but instead make it so that, like, when you activate hypercharge, you pop off like 5 shots. Like, your GCD goes down to like 0.5 seconds for the skills you're using, and then pop, 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 pop. And then maybe those pops also all do affect the OGCD. But, then you can balance around, how much OGCD do we recharge from those 5 shots? Or, also then that might make Wildfire more interesting, because if Wildfire doesn't cap out at like 6 hits, what if all of a sudden you've got this really hype and exciting thing where you're pulling off these like 5 shots in 2.5 seconds, and you can maybe save up to do a second set of 5 shots in 2.5 seconds, and then you've got your other big hits linked in there, and then the Wildfire damage pops, and maybe they redesign it to have, the direct crit animation just so the number pops a lot more. I think there's some room to also give Wildfire a bit more damage variance, so that when you get a really high damaging Wildfire, it actually feels good, which is something Wildfire hasn't had since, I think Stormblood still had the damage scaling on it, but definitely not from Shadowbringers onward. So I would like to see that kind of stuff. I like to see a handful of those things go through. Hashtag Mr. Headache Mondays. I know, dude. My headache's not that bad this morning, but I do have a tiny one that comes and goes. First off, hello, hi. Secondly, not mocking your headaches with the hashtag. It's always been my philosophy to laugh in scary times. No, don't worry. I do that. Even at the hospital, I was making jokes. Hearing you talk about Heavensward Machinist makes me yearn for Heavensward Dark Knight. In those days, it felt like we were nearly unkillable. I think I know what you mean. But given Heavensward was the age of not using tank stance, I very much remember Dark Knights just dying instantly a lot. So I added some stuff to help too, but the job just never felt the same to me, and these days feel like it was the forgotten tank. Looking at logs seems like Gunbreaker is passing us now in damage on most content. Aside from Muff Tank, we really don't have much side to justify our lack of suitability. I'm assuming you mean sustainability. You think it'll actually show us some love before 8.0? No, they said most of the major job changes would be in 8.0. So I wouldn't expect anything before 8.0, and if you get something, cool, but I wouldn't expect it. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Salutations. Hi. In response to the submarine... Okay, I just want to make sure there was a question here because I wanted, there's a lot of text. I wondered a decent solution. Screening should take us out of gutting them completely. I don't believe Screenix wants to remove them, and overall, I don't think they generate as much gil as people think they do. They sure do. I do think that players being incentivized to buy multiple plots for gil is an issue that SG should address, given the limited availability. What are your thoughts on them? Instead of gutting submarines, making it where only 4 submarines or airships could be deployed by a service account per day. I mean, some sort of limitation. I mean, here's the thing. The one thing you can't reasonably stop, and I say this, like, you literally, like, if somebody goes out of their way to do this, like, honestly, like, it's on them. People who have multiple service accounts became the eventual issue. And some people have a lot of service accounts, and what do you realistically can't do anything about that because they're paying a bunch of different subs, and so they all get, it just doesn't make sense to find a way to limit them. Within a single service account, I mean, technically, yeah, this does the job, but I still think it's a problem that people effectively want to yank up houses just to farm gil and have no interest in housing itself as a thing. And I don't know, to me, that's a weird overlap to have where the submarines just... it feels like they fill a different purpose than housing fills, even though they're supposed to be like you can pay for your own housing stuff and your FC events and stuff. It just doesn't end up. That's not how reality ends up working with those, right? So I still feel like they just shouldn't have such a major. It takes several months of getting it set up, but once it is set up, free gil machine that submarines actually are. And I think that was actually the last question. Various other comments, mostly about my health related stuff or my move. Someone saying get into fresh vegetable juicing. Yeah, no, that's not gonna fix high blood pressure for me. That's not gonna do it. And besides, I eat a lot of vegetables and fruits, so I don't think just juicing them and drinking more of them is gonna do a whole lot more than the volume of which I already eat. Nor do I really want to drink vegetable juice. Potassium levels on hydrochloric theazide. Yeah, they warned me about that. I already eat 2 bananas a day, so that was fortunately, that was fortunately something that I was already doing. But yeah, it's mostly just remaining comments about that. There's a funny one here. There are things I miss about 11, and that is the end game. I wish 14 would incorporate that more. Man, as someone who did 11 end game, I just remember it being a constant. Here's the thing: if 11's endgame didn't have shit drop rates, it would have been abandoned a lot faster. Like, really? Like, it's really unfortunate where you consider that the longevity of content effectively comes down to how long its reward is incentivized. And 11's rewards being incentivized were only made content last so long because they were so bad. Like, I know I was in a link shell that said we're never doing Sky or Sea again because we had been through all the rewards. Like, literally nobody needed anything. And so occasionally we'd make what was called a free night, where if somebody needed a random item from Sky or Sea and they were willing to provide pops, we would go do it for them. But, like, in reality, even in Classic 11, we ran into the point where we didn't want to do it anymore. And for Dynamis, we gave up Old World Dynamis entirely. For Limbus, same deal. We pretty much, like there was a point where we were literally just only doing things we could sell for gil. Like, we would only do Dark Ixion, we would only do the Wyrms, we would sell like Hot Eclairs from Chimera, and nothing else was really worth our time. And it all comes down to rate of acquisition. Like, everyone in that group, everyone in that link shell got everything. I mean, we literally had like Remas on all of our, main people that really wanted them, and then anyone who was working on them would just buy all the stuff, and then we would maybe do a Dynamis night that they would host, and we would kill any remaining bosses they might need. So for me, it's like I don't really yearn for anything 11 endgame related. It was effectively a calendar simulator for everything that you personally needed, like Dynamis nights, Limbus nights, Einherjar nights, assault nights. Like, you just basically pick. And I will say, being able to make nights for all those things, I could see them missing in that, but I just remember constantly being disappointed not getting loot for years and years and years, and that was the only reason why my schedule was as full as it was. And quite frankly, I just don't want that again. And no matter what, I feel like 14's never going to give us that type of rarity on just generic content loot, because, I mean, for basically all the reasons that I just described, I just don't see that happening. But anyway, that's just my last thoughts on that. But that's going to be a wrap for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ask your questions in the comment section below, and I'll see about getting my editing software and everything in place, so that way I can actually do some proper edited stuff for Occult Crescent. But be on the lookout for some Occult Crescent stuff this week. I'll have a patch note reading after the servers go down. I will have Occult Crescent reviews. I'll have some videos, maybe some guides on the bosses, a walkthrough of Fork Tower, a discussion of Fork Tower. Like, I'm really planning on definitely getting a lot of Occult Crescent stuff out. And then June's looking like it's going to be pretty cool too. We also have the closed beta 2 of the 14 mobile out. Unfortunately, those details are confidential. So while I have seen them around social media, I'm choosing not to make a dedicated video for them. And their open beta is next month. And I actually had someone who might offer to help me get an account on that version, and that would be really cool. So if I could do that, I would definitely make content on 14 Mobile for the Chinese version, get all my guides made and everything for it, That'd be a lot of fun. And I'd love to interact with the Chinese community more. I mean, there was a period in time where I was interacting with the Japanese community a lot, but I'm really bad at keeping up with that kind of stuff. So, playing on a whole different data center, and I was also really nervous, I'm not going to lie. But I've still kept in touch with some of them from time to time. We talk to each other on, like, social media, or we pop by each other's streams or something along those lines. So that was always nice. I'd like to have that with some of the Chinese community as well. So if I can achieve that through 14 Mobile, then cool. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap. Thanks for watching. I will see all of you in the next video. And until then, take care.